terms of voiceover, thought I read that you started with doing a radio,
Yeah, for the most part it was.
and then with the first any kind of animation job be Transformers?
I did a lot of shorter, smaller, less well-known things before that. But that was my first major job, my first continuing role. And for that, may Wally Burr's memory live in golden lights forever.
What about a first any experience with any kind of dubbing?
Oh, geez. There were any number of really small thumbnail sized dubbing studios in Burbank where I was living. And when I first started, I was just learning my craft. It was on the job training. And frankly, I was no damn good. But apparently the price was right because these studios kept hiring me and I got better at the craft. My first live action feature, The Legend of Alfred Packer, who is sort of a Donner Party thing, a Western thing where he's up in the mountains with a bunch of other people and he's killing them to take the gold out of their teeth. And I was probably 20 different people in that one movie. No one is that good. No one is that good. A lot of little small films that were never destined to hit a big screen anywhere. And eventually I got better and got bigger jobs and got an agent, which is when things really started moving a little better for me.
And is there a special story about how you met Melody then?
Oh, yeah. Remember I said I wanted to do theater? Well, that was at Universal Studios Tour in Hollywood, where I had I was back in the around 81 or so, 81, 82. I was in the Castle Dracula show there. And they closed that down to build the next wonderful, tremendous production, which was Conan, a sword and sorcery spectacular, which is where I met the delectable Melody M. Spivak. She was Red Sonja. I was the evil wizard, Taurus Mordor. She made her entrance from a tiny hole way up in the roof down a 40-foot rope, wearing about a quarter pound of suede. I made my entrance out of a swirling cone of laser beams in a smoky cave, wearing 22 pounds of monkey fur and silver lame and rope and a bunch of other stuff. So it was, all things equal, I think she had the better end of that deal. But then again, I didn't have to climb down 40 feet of rope. And magic happened on a daily basis, 5 or 6 times a day. And out of that, we realized after a certain length of time that we were destined to be together. And thus hath it been ever since.
And I know Richard Epcar and Michael Sorich and Dan Warren, people like that, were part of Universal at that time too.
Oh, yes. Everybody was in Dracula. Dan Warren was in Dracula. Richard Epcar was in Dracula. A few other actors I know. Mike Muscat, Michael Immel. A lot of people cycled through the Dracula show. Most of the Draculas turned out to be voice actors primarily. But like me, we all live when we're on the stage.
And then with anime, would it have been Robotech that started everything?
Primarily, yeah. Robotech and the streamlined stuff that happened at a studio called Intersound, which is actually still in existence in LA. And they did everything. They did foreign miniseries, anime. At that time, we called it Japanimation.
Right.
Hadn't even been called anime yet. And we had no idea what it was going to turn into. At that time, well, for that matter, neither did the Japanese producers. They found a new market, and basically the US producers would take a product, might re-edit it completely differently, which is in fact what happened with Robotech. Carl Masick took footage and edited it incredibly, and the writers, among whom I numbered myself, were then we'd come up with a story to fit what we saw on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty cool. The other things that were done there, some were done. Oh, that's right. I jumped the track. I missed my own story, the point of my own story, which is that it changed the landscape. And no one knew that what was going to happen was that anime was going to achieve the huge guerrilla aspect it did. And basically at this point, it's taken over the world. There's no country in the world with broadcast entertainment that is not playing anime.
And I've found too that everybody has different answers as to how they personally took to dubbing opposed to prelay or any other kind of voiceover. How did you personally take to it?
Actually, I just jumped right in. I enjoyed it sync much better. Most of the stuff I'd done when I was starting out was background group stuff, not so much being able to actually do some sync work. But if you've got a character that you can see and see what the situation is, see what's at stake, watch their body movements and the posture, even the limited aspect you get in some low frame animation, it still gives you something to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing that to life was, this is cool. I like this. I said, I want to do more.
Mm-hmm. And so I know playing D in Vampire Hunter D would have been relatively early on as well.
Yeah. That was way on. D in his poor little hand. The general aspect of the anime at that point was pretty juicy. A lot of splatter stuff. The streamlined stuff with the Carl Masick was working. Actually, he kept buying projects which were, I think, improving the character of the industry in general. Much higher quality products. At first, it was just get something and put the words in it and sell it and make the client happy. But he got to be a little more selective later, and I think he really elevated the accomplishment level of what was being done. And he was always willing and eager to bring along some new talent because it is a huge machine and it chews up a lot of voice actors.
Mm-hmm. And this is the topic of people in that group. Is there a highlighted memory that you have of Lisa Michaelson?
Not specifically.
Okay.
It was a case of, gosh, some of those projects came in so quick and so dirty that there were some projects where we were doing, I mean, they had impossible deadlines,
mm-hmm.
but they made the delivery by running 2 or 3 shifts in the studio. So they change out the recording engineers, but by and large, the actors were kind of there. I know there was on a couple of them occasions where you'd look around and see actors passed out on the floor. I would go in for a session at 2 a.m. and there are people asleep in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while you go over and say, shh, stop snoring, I'm working here. Lisa, I can't remember specifically anything that I find memorable other than the fact that she was just the sweetest. Mm-hmm. Everybody loved her. In the best possible sense, of course.
Yeah, it's funny just having talked to Eddie Frierson and
Hmm.
Ellen Epcar, and they all just kind of have wild stories about how recording was like at that time.
Oh, it was definitely the Wild West. I mean, I have no idea how it was being done in the other centers in New York and Texas, but in LA, definitely the Wild West. You see actors draped all over the stairs, and it was just, wake up, you get ready. You're on at 15. Okay.
And this is one that I personally like. I know would have been early on as well. You played the main villain in Megazone 23.
You're going to have to refresh me.
Okay.
Who was the hero on Megazone 23? Okay, hold on. All right, I have my tool here. Let me see what comes up. This is what I mean by 40 years of stuff. There's only so much room in the brain case.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow, not a clue. Not a bloody clue.
Okay.
I wish I could give you something on that, but it's not happening.
All right.
Well, Snegoff was in it. Who else? Lordy, I have no idea.
What about with Robot Carnival?
Oh, that was fun. Again, it comes back to Carl Masick, and he gave me such interesting roles to be able to do. He had no problem stretching an actor far beyond their capabilities. And Robot Carnival I liked because it was such a low-key approach, which was not usually what I'm doing. When you've got a fairly strong voice, that's what you tend to get cast for and known for. But Carl put me through the ringer on a few things. Said, no, pull it back, pull it back. And in between times, when we're doing the other things, is major direction. 2 pieces of direction I got from Carl Masick. One would be, hey, McConnohie, put some more cheese on that. With that incredible laugh, is because he was sitting in the control room having a wonderful time. The other direction is, hey, McConnohie, a little more purple. And out of that, he got what he wanted. And in that case, with Robot Carnival, I was a little more purple. The cheese we used, for like Lensman and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it was a more serious kind of anime. It was very close to like real acting.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things that I did many years later was Gungrave, and I was an older gentleman who happens to be, the head of a crime family.
Big Daddy, yeah.
Big Daddy. And it was just quiet, real, human acting. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of the most amazing things to me to be able to, I think I did a pretty good job with him, and if I say it honestly, but the fact that I had the gift of being able to do some real acting and not just screaming, not like the Emperor in Code Gas. It was a real person. Mm-hmm. And the chance to do something like that doesn't come along very often. And Robot Carnival was, I have no recollection of the scientist's name, but it was laid back and much more human than a lot of the stuff I got to do.
Mm-hmm. What do you think if there was a single role you can choose where you had to get the darkest emotional headspace for?
Oh, Lordy. Let me look back over this panoply of bad guys I've been. Harlock was just standard stuff. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able in Lensman with Van Buskirk he was kind of big and blustery, but there were a couple of places where he was sort of introspective. I'm trying to think. I think probably, even though he was really loud, would have been Schwarzwald in the Big O.
Yeah.
That boy was dark, no question. Headspace in there was pretty dim. And doesn't matter that he was right. He was a nut job.
I know it was kind of more over the top, but similar, like evil, nasty character with Shin and Fist of the North Star.
Yes. But that was also pulled back. I think that was my first unrequited love story.
Oh.
Because Julia just wasn't having any of it.
Right.
And Julia, of course, being Melody, which was really funny. It was my first unrequited love because everything I'd ever done before, I always got the girl I wanted because, this reason or that reason. But, oh, Lordy, talk about a splatterfest.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But one of my other favorite roles of yours is Anji in Rurouni Kenshin.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That was, I got to do a few things in that. And Anji was, I'll tell you, honestly, it was difficult for me to get a hook on him. I kind of went, depending when you caught him, he went a couple of different ways, which makes for an interesting character to watch, but it's also sort of a schizophrenic approach for the actor doing it. He's big and handsome and strong and capable and all of that. When he waxed pensive, which wasn't often, as I recall, it was a little head twisting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, and I have a problem here specifically with Rurouni Kenshin and Samurai X, because I worked on both. I wrote a lot of the Samurai X episodes.
Yeah.
But which one was I Okina in? Was that Samurai X or was that Rurouni Kenshin?
Well, credit might be wrong, but it did say that you were Okina and Anji in the Rurouni Kenshin dub.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
And apologies because, again, there's an awful lot of stuff floating out there in the ether. And after a while, they do start dissolving their edges together.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved I loved Okina because he was just, that's it. That man is off the wall, and that's just standard bug-eyed anime stock character, old croc number 8. And it comes out of, we get back to that word, theater.
Mm-hmm.
All of the anime characters, one way or another, tend to be rooted in traditional theater. You have about 8 standard characters, and you ring your changes on them. And the circumstances, of course, change. Are you on the Earth? Are you in space? Are you invading? Are you being invaded? You have your tortured kings, who could also be, gangsters in another setting. But there's something very freeing about being able to just go all out with some stupid performances. And I did that. I committed some stupidity with Okina, no question. But it was fun.
And then this might be hard to remember, but it was a modern series. You played a talking cat that was actually an alien called Shamas and McConnohie of Haruhi Suzumiya.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like the cat. That cat was a smartass. And it's actually, I put Shamas in the same regard as Dee's left hand. They got to do the observing. It's, they got to be the Greek chorus to making all the insulting observations on what everyone else is doing. And no repercussions.
Right.
But that was an awful lot of fun.
I think the first case where I started instilling your voice in my head though was with Captain Gordon in the Disgaea series.
Captain Gordon, 37th and a half defender of the earth. Oh, mother. Yeah, that was Disgaea. We started out as a game, couple of games, and then I think it went to a series, as I recall. There were so many versions of Disgaea that I was able to do Captain Gordon, and that I honestly can't keep them straight, which is like everything else. Can I get a crutch for my brain, please? But Captain Gordon was, in terms of more cheese, Masek would have approved, I think.
I know it was interesting that you got to be part of the first ever dub of Dragon Ball, as well as General Tao.
I'm going to tell you, I don't remember it a bit. And I have seen that credit, and I don't remember it one jot.
Wow.
I can't say for sure that it was me, because I've been allegedly credited with some other things. All right, you're making me go to the infernal machine.
Because I know it was the Harmony Gold dub.
Well, then that would have probably been me.
Okay.
But, was I a narrator? Was that it? Generals, emperors, and someone who plays the bongos. So
what about with this more recent, were you taking over the role of Barrigan in Bleach?
I don't, as I recall, no.
Okay.
I think I had that role all the way through it. The Studiopolis dubs, they were fast and furious.
Mm-hmm.
They really were. And Bleach just went on forever. Did a few things, but as I recall, and I don't recall a lot, it was, I think that was me along with you. Go ahead. All right, I'm going to do it again. See, Steve also did him, and I don't know Steve Kramer.
Right.
I don't know which of us was first. I think I started. I wouldn't swear to it. Wow, that's weird, because we are not in the same ballpark vocally. Very interesting. Huh. Hey, I'm learning things. Thank you.
How about your first video game? Do you remember what that was?
Yes, I believe the first one of any note, because I know I lent myself to a few projects that never ever got released. But the first one of any note was Clay Fighters for a company called Interplay, long since gone. But even more important than that was Boogerman, a pick and flick adventure. Boogerman had tremendous powers, all involving various excretory aspects. Climax, his deadliest weapon was a power fart, just so you know.
A big video game one that you got to play for a while was Astaroth and Soul Calibur.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now let's get it back into real games. Astaroth was, gosh, and actually we came back, what, 4, 5 versions of that game, I think. And it really started getting weird in the last couple of episodes. If I'm recalling correctly, in the last one, didn't he get re-embodied as a woman?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's going to be a little hard to forget. I didn't actually get a chance to see it. I just sort of remember the aspect, and it was that, oh, okay, you're a woman. I mean, you sound the same, and don't change anything you're doing, but just realize it now you're in a woman's body. It's like, that actually changes things, but okay. Astaroth, oh gosh, Seth and Street Fighter, went through quite a few episodes with him. Was with the continuing series of the oh Lord, that brain cell just shut down. Dynasty Warrior.
Right.
Various incarnations of Dynasty Warrior, and I was 2 or 3 of those guys through most of it. The cast kind of shifted and changed in the later episodes, and I was no longer doing that. But Astaroth was probably, in terms of, and harking back to Carl Masick's direction, was probably the most cheesy character I ever did, because he's pretty much but brawn and pain, and it was difficult for him to, or difficult for them, I would say, to give him any humanizing aspects. Mm-hmm. Basically, he was angry. That's what he was, embodied anger. That's pretty much what I recall.
And I know there's game series that it still has a lot of big following too, with just tremendous writing. The Xenosaga games, and you got to beat Margulis.
Now that was, oh, thank you for reminding me. Yeah. Margulis, really enjoyed that, because there's someone that had a chance to think, oh yeah, he could be a badass too. But he was intelligent. He wasn't necessarily crazy, at least not so as you'd notice. But he was very much an interesting, sometimes introspective, pretty much always very aware of things going on that other people might not be. That was a really, really interesting character, and I greatly enjoyed that. And yes, he was a good fighter too, so, you know.
What about the case where you have had to alter your voice the most significantly, just in general, not like for voiceover so far?
Well, let's see. Most of the people involved are now no longer around, so I will say there was a version of Tom Sawyer, an anime version of Tom Sawyer that was running on HBO way back in the misty dim days. And that was for Saban. I was writing on a lot of shows at that time. And there was one character they were trying to cast, and they couldn't get the right voice, and even got to the point where they were looking in the production staff, like the secretaries. This was Lucy, the household domestic in, oh gosh, what was the girl's name in her house? And I wound up being the voice of Lucy, the servant. And it was amusing, I suppose, but it's the sort of thing that these days would get me lynched. It was not what you would call subtle and laid back. And in retrospect, why they couldn't find a woman to do that, I cannot begin to tell you. But we did it, and and apparently HBO stayed in business, so they must have known what they were doing.
And I know, going back, this is a topic of behind the scenes. I know you got to do scripts for Tsukihime and some scripts on Digimon and Chobits.
Don't ask me about them.
Okay.
At this point, that's so long ago. Even the computer files are gone out of Chobits. Uh, it was fun. It was the most innocent kind of anime there is.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I liked about it was because she was just so sweet. She just wanted to be, be a real girl. And there was one episode, but it's where she wants to be a real girl, so she goes out shopping for clothes. And this is going to be illustrative of the relationship between actors and writers and producers. As the thing was going on, she was looking for the type of an undergarment that would be suitable for a real girl. So she's out walking around in the town, window shopping, and the original audio track has her going, pantsu, 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 pantsu. And so what else could it be? So I wrote panties, 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 panties. It fit. It's what the intention was, and it was, in fact, what was being bought. But ran into one of those cultural roadblocks you will never, ever be able to surmount, because the producer in charge said, no, it's not panties, it's underwear. And after great discussion, we changed the script so that she was walking around going underwear, 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 underwear.
Yeah.
And that's merely one more illustration of how it is that it's the golden rule, and what the producer says goes.
Mm-hmm.
I would very much have liked it to have been panties. I think that would have been funnier. I think it would have been more correct from the English speaking audience's point of view. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't it. It's I don't think I've ever run into that sort of an obdurate roadblock from a producer before. And she wasn't being nasty about it. She was just, from the Japanese standpoint, it's not panties, it's underwear. Mm-hmm. This is sort of off the topic of anime. For quite a few years, I was working for DreamWorks, going internationally and supervising foreign dubs of the DreamWorks films. And I ran into cultural, not roadblocks so much as obstacles, a lot. Mm-hmm. But I never ran into anything that couldn't be resolved or compromised on, as I did with that. It was just very, very interesting to me. And at a time in my life when, you think you've seen it all. Nope.
Yeah, having talked to Michelle Ruff as well, she said that playing Chi was in Chobits was one of the highlights of her career, where it was very super, super particular on what was wanted from producers.
Mm-hmm. And she brought such sweetness to that little girl. She really, really did. And gosh, Michelle and I, at this point, most of the people in the field, there's a new generation, a second new generation coming up now in dubbing. But those of us who were in the trenches from the very beginning, there's an awful lot of good feeling and family feeling that goes with it. And I think back to all the people I knew, the people I've lost, and I've been so incredibly fortunate to have been able to work with people who have become a part of my life. Mm-hmm. Michelle is one of them.
Are you, or were you close with Bridget Hoffman?
For quite some time. We did a lot of things together. And then she got more work outside of anime, more mainstream things. And as will happen, you kind of drift away. But Bridget was, for someone who seems so slight, and that's in her aspect, don't buy into it. There was a steel core to her that was not really always evident on first meeting. She amazing strength in that woman.
I know that she's been out of the picture for a while, but I'm still facilitating setting something up with Brienne Sadal.
Oh, Brie. Brie is a force of nature.
Yeah.
And I hope that you'll be able to work something out. I think it would be an awful lot of fun. Brie has been everything, and it's been very, very close with her, and it is golly, oh man, the stories that are running through my head, none of them I'm going to tell you. So there it is.
I would think that maybe the single most fun case you've had with anime was narrating Bobobo.
Yes. And arguably my absolute favorite is the one when they lost the audio and the narrator had to do everybody. Can't tell you the name of the episode or the number, but oh, that was fun. That was just hysterical fun. And that was the most ridiculous program I've ever worked on. And Michael Sorich was basically writing and directing. And he's not shy. He's not retiring. And neither is his sense of humor. But he was basically building all of Bobobo from the start. I think later we finally worked him to death a little bit, and he had to take a break. But the situations and what he came up with, and those characters, just to begin with, just wonderful, silly fun.
The similar character name, Babbo and Mare, if you remember.
Yes, Merchant Awakens Romance.
Yep.
Yes, Babbo was, who did that with, that was at PCB. And I looked at Babbo as you try to find a hook for a character. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're going to be maintaining that character for a while. And for him, I decided he was Cyrano de Bergerac, quite literally a ball and chain. So what? Get over it. He's a beautiful artistic soul. Really enjoyed that. That was also a nuts show.
I suppose then most recently, like the most recent anime you've worked on is still doing Barta and Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah, I think that would be the last. At this point, I have moved out of LA. I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
So and that was even before the advent of COVID, and an awful lot of dubbing is being done now under incredible circumstances. I don't think the fans really know how difficult it is. It used to be, you go into the studio, it's going to be one actor in the studio anyway. So technically it hasn't changed much in that regard, where you have a director, a recordist, and an actor. Very, very rare to have any actors working together at the same time. But when you throw in the layers of complexity of the time delay when you're recording over Source Connect or one of the other audio transport mechanisms, it's difficult. Communication is difficult. And then putting things together, it puts me in mind of, oh gosh, when we first started with the COVID thing and everyone was shut up. and couldn't go anywhere and do anything. And people started putting together choral musical extravaganzas, everyone working from their own home somewhere and assembling some of the most amazing, beautiful, complex musical performances. And when you've got a very highly populated anime where you've got a lot of characters, the production time, which is always at a premium, is strained to the absolute nth degree. And I would not care to be directing an anime production under those circumstances these days. It's an amazing feat, and it's much more difficult. And to be brutally honest, license fees and producer fees have increased and increased and increased. And what is left to pay the people who are actually doing the work is minimal. It used to be, infinitely worse, no question. And I would go to conventions, and fans would come up and ask, of course, how they could become a VA. And well, if you're going to be a voice actor, the first thing is you have to be an actor. So do stage. I always made a point of that, because if you're going to bring realism to a vocal performance, you've got to visualize the space you're in, and know the difference between talking to someone who's a foot away from you and someone who's 6 feet away from you. If you have some sort of physical effort, that's got to show in your voice, all of that stuff. But the most important thing is, when people say, I want to come and be a voice actor, I said, specifically in anime, I say, no, you don't. Mm-hmm. You can't make a living in anime.
Right.
There's just not enough work for one human being to support rent. As an adjunct to something else you're doing, that's fine. But you don't want to just be an anime voice actor. You'll dry up and blow away. So be an actor. There's nothing you can learn that won't be of use to you somewhere in an acting career. And if anything comes along, you do it. If it's live action, if it's film, if it's voiceover, whatever. You get your chops honed enough to the point where you're lucky enough to hit on a commercial or something like that, golden. But anime it's a lifestyle choice, but it's not a lifestyle sustainer. It's a little bit different, I think, for the actors at Funimation. That is an amazing factory for anime. Mm-hmm. And if you're working there, you are there every day, all week. And they churn out an incredible amount of anime. And the actors, that's what they do. That's the only place I know of where you can make a living being a dubbing actor. And it's extraordinarily difficult because it's like any full-time job, but even more so because you really can't get away from it. And once you begin a production, that's what you're doing. And oh gosh, I think at one time I heard they had 10 or 12 dubbing stages going at once. Mm-hmm. And that is just an incredible amount of work. Other than that, though, unless you're one of the handful of people who is basically a house actor at Funimation, do it because you love it. Don't do it because it's going to keep you in beer and Skittles.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever any, makes me think to ask, was there ever any point early on in your career where you were starting to get more voice work regularly that you got demotivated and thought that maybe this wasn't what you should be doing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. If you're an actor, you better get used to rejection.
Mhm.
That's an actor's job primarily is looking for work. The performance is a bonus. And that's the reward you get if you are looking for work concertedly enough. And Lord, and even worse now, because it was tending this way anyway. But with COVID, everyone shutting up into their little hovels and gluing themselves to their computers. If you have a computer, you have a sound studio. Yeah, you can upgrade the equipment a little bit, but the sheer competition now has increased by a magnitude. It's where originally you might have been up against a couple of, 5, maybe a dozen other people for a particular role. You can now be up against hundreds of people trying to get the same role. Mm-hmm. Numbers are not in your favor, unfortunately, because of what I was saying earlier about producers and their license fees and so forth, and how much is left over for the production end. Those costs, the recompense anyway, is harder and harder to come by. It's just a few crumbs left when you get to the point of actually making the things happen. Now, if you're one of the people who is working in LA, I know a lot of the actors are going, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's maybe half a dozen, maybe 8 seriously working dubbing studios in LA. And if you can go from one to the other and one to the other, you can make it work. But that's based on personal relationships. Mm-hmm. And without a personal relationship, you're not really likely to break into the business. If you're going to be an actor, you better have a day job. Of course, mm-hmm. There's always restaurant stuff. Every actor is a waiter or something to do in a restaurant. That's just the way that goes. You go and you see someone who's coming up, and just by the perkiness they have when they're telling you what the specials are going to be, you have to ask, "What have I seen you in?" And it's amazing how many times they, "Oh, well, let me tell you," and that's in LA. Not so much here, although where I am, which is somewhere close to Atlanta, I've run into quite a few people here because Atlanta's a major production hub. Mm-hmm. And there's quite a cadre, quite a good population of accomplished actors here because there's so much going on that I've had occasion to use that line in a restaurant, and more often than not, they really are in the business. But even if you're working in the business, you don't get rid of your day job or night job, as the case may be. Mm-hmm. After enough decades in the industry, you'll get to know people, and you can begin to manufacture a little of your luck. But to start out, you have to be at the place where the lightning's going to strike. Mm-hmm. And the spaces in between the lightning strikes are getting further and further apart. How's that for a tortured image?
So what kind of voice work do you do now, primarily?
Yeah, primarily it's video games, doing a lot of things for Blizzard and a couple of other companies. I haven't gone looking for a lot more now because, let's face it, at this point, I'm getting a little long in the tooth and I'm ready to slow down a little bit. People don't tend to think of that, but it is. I mean, okay, big shock. I'm getting old. It happens. You can't stop it. And I would like a chance to sit down and not strive so much. As we've demonstrated remarkably here, I have such a body of work, I can't even remember it. That's probably getting close to enough. But the stuff I'm doing with Blizzard and all the various aspects of their games, World of Warcraft. I mean, good grief. I started with Blizzard almost 30 years ago.
Oh,
It was Diablo 2. I believe that was almost 30 years ago.
mm-hmm.
And the character Zul, the necromancer from there, well, he's still working from time to time today. I've been incredibly blessed. I've had a really beautiful and fulfilling career. And at this point, I really have no qualms about saying, it's time to slow down, walk nicely. I don't have to run. Oh, look, there's a bench. Let me sit on there. Oh, look, flowers. Aren't they pretty?
My final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Wow, that's a good one. I'll tell you, actually, it's I feel the greater part of my legacy is tied back into some of my earlier work, specifically the Transformers. There was a humanity to the Autobots that is sadly lacking in animation series today. Mm-hmm. And when I go to conventions, I will have families come up to me, 3 generations, grandfather, father, child, or grandmother, mother, child. It's not gender-based at all, but I'll have three generations of people come up to me all at the same time, and all of them watch, because the older generation brings the younger generation in to appreciate it because of the humanity and the positive message there. Mm-hmm. And insofar as I have been a part of that, I'm really proud. And I think that is probably my legacy, if you want to call it that, the aspect of my legacy that I am most proud of. Because to see someone, a child, come to appreciate the more positive aspects of knowing what your actions do to people, of it's okay to help people, you don't always have to make fun of people, is something that I think the world needs more than some of the stuff we're seeing, which is, it goes in waves. But the smarmy, insulting, snide, smart alecky stuff that happens in most of the cartoons, the new animation and stuff. I'm not big on toilet humor either, regardless of Booger Man. And don't quote me on that. The things I've done, I think, from the Transformers, the things I've written, that's another thing. All right, getting on my soapbox here. I think I have tried in the scripting I've done to treat the audience with respect. On the stuff written for younger kids, I would put in words and concepts that were not immediately accessible to them. Mm-hmm. So they could reach. I had someone say, you can't use words like that. They're not going to know what it is. Yes, that's why they have to go look it up and learn. There are so many people go in the direction that you can't give anyone something that they can't immediately access or comprehend. And That is shortchanging children to a degree I cannot begin to describe. It's no fair. It's no damn fair not to give the kids something to reach for. And in my writing, the scripts I've done, I have tried as much as I could to give the audience something to reach for, as well as be entertained. I mean, it is entertainment. That is the definite purpose of it. That is the avowed point. But it doesn't hurt to give the kids a little something to reach for as well. And I don't think I've said that much, but I'm extremely proud of my efforts in that regard. So there it is. I'm making the world a better place.
Yeah, I've told this this story to Melody and Bridget and Wendy Lee and a handful of people when I was in 4th grade. My family and I were just out to eat at a normal restaurant that we frequented at that time, and when we were about to leave, heavily armed SWAT policemen came in and turned all the lights off and told everybody that was inside the restaurant to huddle into the 2 bathrooms because there was a guy who killed one person and tried to kill another person, who fled police and crashed his car outside the restaurant, and he was trying to get in. And then everybody in the restaurant we were all in there for probably 5 hours, and we had to get individually escorted to our cars at like 1 a.m. And I know that as a 9 or 10-year-old, I wouldn't have been able to get over how that affected me if I wasn't watching or playing the anime and games that I was consuming at that time. So I just wanted to thank you for being a part of that.
That is an amazing story and an incredible gift. I thank you very, very much. I have heard quite a few times at appearances and conventions and so forth, you don't know what you meant to me when I was growing up. And a lot of my colleagues don't fully come to grips with, I don't want to say the importance, but I guess that's actually valid, with just how deeply we affect the people who are watching what we do. And to hear that story, which just gives me chills, and people I've spoken to at various times who say, when you did this or that, it gave me hope. When you did this or that, it made me feel better. Well, damn it, if it made you feel better, it makes me feel better. It's not just entertainment. Everything has an effect. Everyone does. And if you have the sort of fulcrum that being in this kind of entertainment gives you, the power you have to move people is immense. And a lot of my colleagues, I think, younger ones especially, because as you get older, you get smarter, forget just how much power there is in what we do. It doesn't matter how silly it is. Bobobo, it does not get sillier than that. But if someone spent their time watching that and it helped them get through a bad patch, that's beautiful. And it lends, more value to what we do than otherwise. And I'm very proud and very pleased to have been able to do the things I have done in my life.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that we got to do this.
I'm very happy to, and I'm sorry for the complexity leading up to it. It's it my life. It's like Batman. It's been very complex lately, but things are smoothing out, and I'm just really pleased we're able to get together. And I am so grateful for your patience and your forbearance with how difficult I've made it.
Oh no, it's no problem at all. It was I was looking forward to it for a long time.
On that note, then I will say I thank you very much. If there's something else you think I can give to help you with this, just let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You bet. Take
Okay.
care, Chris.
Bye.
Bye.